Omega Speedmaster Racing. Let me do that again. God. Hey guys, it's Cam with Craft and Tailored, and this episode of What Is On My Wrist, we're talking about a 2004 Omega Speedmaster Professional. The reference is 3570.40, and many of the collectors out there are going to recognize this as the Japan exotic dial or Japan racing dial. Very cool watch. It's the first one that we've ever had in our collection. Pretty elusive watch. Really excited to share this one with you. Let's dive into the details. So really interesting watch. We're obviously big fans of Omega Speedmasters. I have a few that are in my collection. I love pre-moon Speedmasters. I love post-moon Speedmasters. Omega Speedmaster is one of the most iconic sports watches ever made with a ton of history. In the late 1960s, Omega was experimenting with some dial variations, similar to what you would see in kind of like the Omega Flightmasters. And then also, if you're familiar with the Omega Mark II, Omega created kind of the exotic or racing dial for the Omega Mark II, which is really, really cool. But in a very limited number, the estimate is about 150 of them within the reference 145.022 caliber 861. Omega actually created this exotic kind of high visibility racing dial, as they give it the nickname, which basically is kind of this maroon or outer red minute track with these high visibility orange accents, and then with a different non-luminous filled sweep seconds hand with high visibility orange minute and hour recorder hands, which is an exotic dial variant of the Omega Speedmaster. The other similar version of that would be the Omega Tintin, which also has an exotic dial variant. And in watchmaking fashion, the dial actually represents technical form meeting function, not necessarily just kind of a cosmetic type of variant. So although now today they're celebrated because they're high visibility and colorful and they kind of look a little bit different, this actually does serve a technical function. So if you actually look at the outer dial, as you stop the sweep seconds hand, you can actually count it down to, I think, like 1/8 of a second. Don't quote me on that, but basically the little hash marks and the little variants, or that kind of like checkerboard or racing type of like checkered flag look, allows you to actually time it down to, I think, like 1/10 of a second, which is pretty awesome. Whereas the normal Speedmaster, you don't have that in the outer minute track. You just kind of have your normal, minutes and all that kind of stuff. So really interesting dial variant there. So let's talk a little bit about the details of this specific watch and kind of what makes it different. The obvious thing that makes this different is, instead of having a black, base portion of the dial, you have this kind of like, I guess you could almost call it like a lunar gray type of, coloration to the base portion of the dial. And then you have that outer red minute track. You have the checkerboard timing scale, if you want to call it that, on the outer minute track. And then you have the typical Omega hour markers, right? You have kind of this phallic kind of looking 12 o'clock marker. I think some people even call it, I don't even want to say the word because we'll probably get have like a violation on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, whatever. So this is just a signature mark of the brand for the 12 o'clock marker.
I don't believe it.
I mean, it looks like a f***ing Pete. I mean, it just is.
I didn't notice this.
Yeah, look.
What?
Right there.
Oh yeah, it is a bit chody.
All right, so in 2004, Omega was kind of paying homage to this specific variant. In the 145.022, or 022 rather, they have an estimated total production of about 150, that's the estimate. In 2004, they made an unnumbered 2,004 of them, so pretty small production of the Japan Racing Speedy, all things considered. Really cool watch. I mean, I'm a big fan of the Omega Speedmaster Professional series. There's not really much different in terms of like the movement or anything like that, especially with some of these early Omega collaborations or special editions. It wasn't like special edition, massive box, papers. It was just like, hey, we just did like this cool thing. We're gonna quietly release it. And this one they did in Japan. You can now get these all over the world and they've become highly collectible. This is the first one that we've ever had. Kind of cool to actually finally get one of these into our collection. The other thing too is that it's exotic, but it's not really like too loud. If you were not a watch fan and you just were wearing this, like I don't think that somebody would go, oh, like that's wild. But for those on the inside, you for sure would be like, oh, that's really cool. You know, is that, you know, 145.022 or is that the one from 2004? And they're both, you know, very, very rare. So generally speaking, that's the thing that I love about the Omega Speedmaster Professional range of watches is even today, as we're recording this at the end of 2022, you can go into an Omega, get a Moonwatch, and it's pretty much the same version of what was kind of released in like, you know, the later part of the 1960s, even down to them still producing a watch with like a Hesalite crystal, which this also has, which I love. So really cool watch overall. The thing that's kind of interesting is even though the watch is kind of a throwback watch, there is a lack of a step in the dial. So that's kind of different between the original versus this one. And then obviously the bracelet is kind of this 1998 version of the Omega Speedmaster bracelet, which is kind of a little bit more contemporary. I actually like this bracelet a lot. It's probably one of the most comfortable Omega bracelets that was ever produced. I know people are gonna argue with me and say, you know, an original Omega blah. Okay, I got you. But like for all intents and purposes, like this oval link Speedmaster bracelet that you kind of see in the later part of the 1990s into the 2000s, for me is one of the most comfortable, you know, Omega Speedmaster bracelets ever produced. A little bit big on the clasp and they've got this kind of like double pinch mechanism thing going on here. Really cool bracelet. So in any case, guys, this one is available for sale on the Craft and Tailored website at the time of filming this. If you want to check it out, I'll provide a link up here and I'll provide a link down below. If you are not doing so already, be sure to follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Craft and Tailored. We post a lot of fun short form content there. Like, comment, subscribe, tell me you don't like my haircut, tell me to go f myself, I don't know, whatever you want to do. And if you've got watch questions, we're here and happy to help. Drop us a line at info@craftandtailored.com. Thanks again, guys, for tuning in. I will see you in the next one.
It is a bit chody.
It's like a
Or it's a rocket ship.
well, same thing.